Hello and welcome to Shredder Zoo. Today we're taking a closer look at a dinosaur that maybe doesn't actually exist, at least in name. This is the Troodon. The Troodon has always had a complex and uncertain history when it comes to its name. I will try to give you a summary, but be warned, it's a little confusing. When Troodon was first discovered in 1855, it was only known from a single tooth found in the Judith River Formation in Montana. The naming of a new species based on one tooth may seem strange, but back in the 1800s it was fairly common. The tooth itself was at least unique. It was curved like a carnivore, but it also had serrations on its edges similar to many herbivores. Without the skull or any part of the skeleton to go by, it was impossible to know what kind of dinosaur it was. In fact, it was impossible to tell if it even was a dinosaur. Joseph Leedy, who named it, its name meaning wounding tooth, originally classified it as a lizard. It wasn't until 1901 that it was reclassified as a dinosaur. But it was reclassified as a megalosaurid, which is where paleontologists tended to put dinosaurs in when they didn't really know what they were. Then in 1924, the Troodon was again reclassified as a herbivorous pachycephalosaur, based on the similarity of the teeth to these herbivorous dinosaurs. In fact, all pachycephalosaurs were known as the Troodontae. But in 1945, Troodon was removed from the group and reclassified as a carnivorous theropod dinosaur. And since you can't have a group of dinosaurs named after a dinosaur that is no longer part of that group, they were renamed Pachycephalosauridae after the Pachycephalosaurus. It turns out that while this confusing series of events was unfolding, skeletal material for Troodon did actually exist, although it was classified under the name of Steinonychosaurus. Now remember that name, we'll be coming back to it later. The material for Steinonychosaurus was discovered in 1932, but it was fragmentary. When compared to the zero skeletal remains of Troodon, no one knew any better than to create a separate genus. The discovery of more fossil material throughout the 20th century would slowly bring Steinonychosaurus and Troodon together, but it would not be until 1987, when Dr. Philip Curry studied the material attributed to both, that the connection was made. Curry found that the only differences between Steinonychosaurus and Troodon were the products of age of the individuals, and they were one and the same. Not only did Steinonychosaurus become a Troodon, but Polyodontosaurus and Pectinodon also became Troodons. However, the concept that all late Cretaceous North American Troodontids belonged to one species began to be questioned soon after Curry's 1987 paper was published, including by Curry himself. Fossil specimens of Troodon have been discovered across the expanse of North America in late Cretaceous sediments as far north as Alaska and, depending on how you interpret the evidence, as far south as New Mexico. When paleontologists are faced with such wide distributions, they're usually inclined to speculate that the genus umbrella may be too big. Not only are the specimens separated by large geographical distance, but they also span millions of years. It's very likely that there are several species of Troodon. And that is where the naming matter rested. That is until earlier this year, when thanks to some new research from the University of Alberta graduate student Aaron van der Riest, the name Troodon has been replaced. In the early summer of 2014, Van der Riest discovered an intact troodontid pelvis in Dinosaur Provincial Park Formation of southern Alberta. This led to him conducting an in-depth analysis of previously collected troodontid fossils, including skull bones. His research concluded that the Dinosaur Provincial Park fossil record held two genera of troodontid and not one. The shape of the pelvic bones, particularly the pubis, led to the erection of a new species, Latinovenatrix. It comes from the Upper Dinosaur Park Formation as the late Campanian, and following the students' reassessment of troodontid fossil material from strata representing the youngest layers of the Dinosaur Park Formation, other fossil elements including partial skulls have been assigned to this species. Latinovenatrix, meaning hiding hunter, a reference to the muddle and confusion surrounding North American troodontids, was the largest troodontid ever found, standing 2 meters tall at the head and almost 3.5 meters long. But here at Shredder Zoo, we are more interested in the smaller Troodon, which has now been renamed Steinonychosaurus. I told you to remember that name. So for now, the name Troodon is no more. But since here in Ark it is still called Troodon, for the rest of this video I will stick to this name. So now we've cleared up the history and naming of the dinosaur, what was it actually like? It was less than a metre tall and around 2.4 metres long. It had large forward-facing eyes that gave it good stereoscopic vision and depth perception. Due to the size of the eyes, it might have been a nocturnal dinosaur. Its teeth, as mentioned before, are curved like a predator, but also have herbivorous serrations. This could mean it was an omnivore. One thing that is certain about the teeth, they would have been almost useless against hard material like bone, or even tough branches, and Troodon would have had to have focused on the only softer food items. When considering the other predatory traits such as forward-facing eyes, long legs, a lightweight build and the presence of a sickle claw on each foot, it is almost certain that Troodon was a predator. Even with this reasoning, however, it is still possible that Troodon may have been an occasional omnivore. Another interesting feature is an opposable thumb on its three-fingered hand. It may have used this to manipulate objects while hunting for prey. Most modern reconstructions show the Troodon with a covering of primitive feathers. This is probably a pretty good reconstruction, as not only did other smaller members of the Troodontae have feathers, Troodon is known from as far north as modern-day Alaska. Such northern latitudes, even at the end of the Cretaceous period, would have been much cooler than areas just a few hundred miles south, quite easily necessitating the presence of insulating feathers. Troodon is famous for being one of the few carnivorous dinosaurs whose parenting routines are known in detail. To judge by the preserved nesting grounds discovered by Jack Horner in Montana's Two Medicine Formation, Troodon females lay 2 eggs per day over the course of a week or so, resulting in a circular clutches of 16 to 24 eggs. The nests were made with soil, and no evidence of plant matter used for the nest construction has been found. As with some modern birds, it's possible that these eggs were brooded by the male of the species. Troodons are considered to be the most intelligent dinosaur to ever live, but what exactly is meant by this? Animal intelligence is extremely hard to measure, and the fact that the Troodon went extinct millions of years ago makes it even harder. Some scientists use the encephalization quotient, or EQ, to attempt to measure relative intelligence. This is a relative brain size measure that is defined as the ratio between actual brain mass and predicted brain mass for an animal of a given size, which theorize approximate intelligence level or cognition of the species. The problem with this is there are many ways to calculate it, and different sources will give you different results, and it's reportedly unreliable for non-mammalian species. But for the sake of fun speculation, let's examine the findings for Troodon. On the EQ scale, mankind places about 7.4 to 7.8. Some studies have placed Troodon as high as 5.8. Quite an achievement when you consider that most dinosaurs chart under 2 on the scale, with most herbivorous dinosaurs under 1. Modern animals like a chimpanzee chart around 2.2 to 2.5, and bottlenose dolphins just over 4. Of course, different brain tissue is used for different processes. Brains are made up of different areas of sight, smell, memory, etc. If 2 different animals still have the same size brain as one another, one still may be more intelligent than the other if one had more neural tissue associated with things like memory and problem solving than sight and smell. Although that animal would not be as physically able as the other, it would have greater intelligence. The EQ scale doesn't take this into account. Troodon had large eyes, and coupled with its presence in northern latitudes, may have needed more brain power just to process visual information. However, this does not disprove Troodon intelligence. Brains in higher forms, including people, are folded. This is the wrinkled look of brains when they are seen outside the body, and occurs in order to get more neural tissue working in a smaller area. The brains of more primitive animals are usually just amorphous clumps of neural cells. Reconstruction of Troodon brains has revealed early indications of the brain beginning to fold on itself, something that is considered to be radically different to other reconstructed dinosaur brains. Again, this does not mean that Troodon was more intelligent, but it does indicate that it had more potential brain power that was developing along even more special lines. It's also worth remembering that by having hands that could grasp things, Troodons would have had even greater opportunity to learn from its environment. So naturally, people have wondered what would have happened to a dinosaur that was apparently more intelligent than the chimpanzee, and that had grasping hands, had the extinction of the dinosaurs not happened. In 1982, the Canadian paleontologist Dale Russell put forward a not too serious proposal of the Dinosauroids, a race of humanoid creatures that would have been the result of Troodon evolution over the last 65 million years. Although they have been criticised for being too human, it's still interesting to think about what might have been. Well, that's all I have for you this week, and as always, I hope you've enjoyed the video and you've learned something new. If you did, please let me know by leaving a like and a comment down below, and please come back next time for more here at Shredder Zoo. Goodbye.